Hello, my name is Kiriath, and today we are going to talk about these two lads, Apollos Cage and Crotus Hark, and use it as a nice segue into the wider subject of why I think Forge World does amazing things with their Necromunda models. See, one of the things I really like about Necromunda is the fact that it's recognisably Warhammer 40k, and yet it's taking it down to a different level that you don't actually see in the wider tabletop stuff. So, I mean, from Kill Team up to Apocalypse, we now have a vast array of different ways to fight with your Tau Force, your Tyranid Force, your Space Marines, your Imperial Guard, whatever it is you play. Those armies can now be used from small skirmishes all the way up to absolutely vast battles. But those are what I would now, I'd say, class as like the standard 40k stuff. We see them often enough, and they've been around for long enough that I feel like after a while it's easy to lose the feeling of what makes different factions special, just because we see them so often. And of course they represent like a galactic scale war. They represent the survival of humanity as a whole against various other races, and indeed the survival of those races against everyone else. It's literally eternal war. That's how that works. Necromunda is a little bit different because it takes it down to that gang level and takes it down to what I would say in some ways is a little bit of a more approachable kind of setting in a way, because it's less, the future of this world and more vying for power in essentially a corrupt administration, or, trying to actually get somewhere in your chosen hive through the old-fashioned ways of just murdering the people that are standing against you, which I suppose in a way is not that dissimilar to the whole Galactic War thing, but it's on a slightly different scale. It's a slightly different story in a way. The thing with all of the vast amount of lore and story behind Warhammer 40,000 is that I think it's easy to get focused on the big stuff, and the big stuff, of course, are things like Space Marines fighting Tyranids, they're like Necrons fighting Imperial Guard. It is those world-defining moments whereby this planet could survive or die based on this fight. And along with that comes the familiarity of knowing what everything looks like and losing that sense of, I guess, diversity of gear, of methods, of all of that stuff that you would find in the lower echelons of Warhammer 40k. Things like bounty hunters, for instance. So, Apollos Cage and Crotus Hark are the newest Necromunda models from Forge World, and like all of the other Necromunda models that they've done a fantastic job of taking stuff that is recognisably 40k and making something genuinely unique with it. This is the thing I really like about these models. They are recognisably part of the 40k universe, but they're also standalone. They don't rely on everything else around them. They are unique in appearance, and they actually expand the feeling of 40k because of that. Because of the fact that they have recognisable gear, recognisable equipment, but in configurations that you wouldn't see elsewhere, because they are clearly scavenged, or they've been stolen, or, repaired, or it just adds an extra layer of, oh yeah, there is this entire other side to Warhammer 40,000 that typically, when you're playing tabletop, you don't actually see all that often. And even when it comes to, I'd say, the lore itself, yeah, there's a fair amount written, but a lot of it is based around the heroic battle scenario, in one way or another, or, in case of the Horus Heresy, the downfall of the Imperium as a whole. It's something a little bit different, but it's still properly Warhammer 40,000. So, with these two models in particular, you can see the fact that there's a bolter, there's what looks like some sort, is that a las or a shotgun? I think it's a shotgun, isn't it? But there's elements to this model that are so completely Warhammer 40,000, and yet it looks unique. It looks like a unique character, like a unique person. It looks like it's in the same universe, but a different setting, which I know sounds obvious, but the thing is, when you are looking at the same Space Marines every time, when you're looking at the same Imperial Guard every time, when you're looking at the same Grey Knights or Dark Eldar, it's easy to forget, I think, that there is this entire underworld to Warhammer 40,000 that in a way just isn't explored as much. But Forge World do just an amazing job of actually not just reminding us of that, but expanding it at the same time. Actually showing that there is this, this constant... there's constant fighting everywhere, but it's not always on that same kind of galactic scale. The fact that the models are really, really good helps a lot, but it is the fact that they are so different to anything else that's out there. They're so unique. They look so not like anything else. There's some proper mad stuff going on. Look at it. Ortrum 88 is still one of the most, just hands down, insane miniatures that I've seen for the 40k setting. It just is. Look at it. Look at the guy. It's so weird. It's so off-putting. It's so grotesque. It's properly horrible. But at the same time, I'm super glad that it exists. I'm super glad that we get to see it, because it properly brings yet another element of Warhammer 40,000 to life. That weird, genetically enhanced mutant just freak show that the Imperium still has. No matter how much you might hear, purge the heretic, purge the mutant, burn the witch, all of that stuff, there are still things like this floating around. It's one of the reasons why the AdMech stuff is so cool, especially if you start kit bashing the hell out of stuff. The Mechanicus is full of bizarre and weird creations, and we do get some of that from the actual army itself, but you can so make weird stuff to go with it, and it is totally in place with that faction, even though it might seem slightly out of place with the setting itself. But it isn't really. This is a thing that exists in this universe, but if you're only looking at the canvas of Space Marines versus Eldar, that is something that doesn't come up. But it's still there, and it shows a side to Warhammer 40,000 that you otherwise wouldn't get without it. On a similar but different note, Eros Slag Mist, which is still an amazing name. You slag. You can't say slag without, not saying that afterwards. Again, is such a weird model. It's genuinely an odd model. But that's why it works so well. It's something so almost alien, but not quite. It's so different from everything else. We've made a video about this guy himself, I think, in the past, but again, it's kind of worth repeating. It adds that extra element to 40k that I think it's easy to forget exists to some extent. Same again for Bertram Arterus III. It's mad. It's like a full-on aristocratic-looking guy, like a big white wig and everything. But he's a bounty hunter, and he's literally going... Again, it's just something that I think it's easy to forget about. It's something that you don't necessarily keep in mind all the time, that there are people like this running around. But when you look at all the stuff that's released for tabletop, if you look at various, the vast majority of battle reports, both on YouTube and in things like White Dwarf and stuff, it would be so easy to just not even think about this side of 40k, but Forge will just throw it at us like, oh yeah, by the way, this guy exists, deal with it. And you kind of have to go, oh shit, yeah, he is in this universe. That's awesome. Again, maybe not quite to the same extent, because we've seen psychers of various types in various 40k armies, and quite a lot of them can look a little bit weird. This one, perhaps a little weirder than some, given that he has two faces, one of which is mostly pulled off and the other one is now on his belt. I wonder if this was the inspiration for the Unmade, actually. That'd be interesting, if that was, or if it was like the same person who designed some of them. Interesting. I've not drawn that parallel before, but they both have a thing of wearing their own face on their belt, which it very much looks like is what he's done. But again, it's like... it just adds that extra element to a universe that we know very, very well, but I think is easy to to get lost in some ways, to ignore the fact that some truly mad stuff goes down. And of course, just some of the other hired guns in general. Like, not quite as extreme as some of the others, obviously. These guys are not quite on the same level as, like, Ortrum 8.8 or Slag Mist. But, again, it's just an added element to the universe as a whole that is easy to forget about, but we don't actually forget about it because Forge will keep bringing out models like this that just have such a unique air, that have such a totally different feel to everything else, and yet they don't look out of place. They don't look like they shouldn't be in 40k. They look like they are part of 40k, and that's one of the best things about them, the fact that they are so completely different and yet coherent in the universe as a whole. I just really like this stuff. I really think that the Necromunda stuff, especially from Forge World, is some of the best stuff that they do, purely because of just how different and yet completely recognisable it all is. I think it's a genuine challenge to make something that looks nothing like something that you would find in, well, like in another army, like to create a truly unique character that stands out from other stuff in the same universe, whilst at the same time being totally at home with other models that look nothing like it, and they seem to be doing a fantastic job of that every single time. So yeah, these are the two new ones, but I thought it was a good opportunity to talk about all of them and how just crazy good they are. I feel like the Forge World Necromunda stuff, in fact, in fairness, the Necromunda stuff as a whole, I mean, I feel like I'm downplaying the good job that is being done with that model range anyway, but it's one of the most consistently high quality ranges I think that Games Workshop does. I mean, the Corridor kit is a godsend for anyone looking to go a bit dark with their AdMech, and there's so many good models in there, and they're like a proper goldmine for fun conversions. Just as a whole, that range is solid, and the icing on the cake is the stuff that Forge World does for it. They just look really goddamn good every time. Anyway, that's a bit of nice Saturday afternoon gushing for you. Let me know what you think of all of those lads in the comments down below. Do you like the Necromunda range? Are you as enthusiastic as I am about it? Or are you just like, yeah, whatever? Or do you just think to yourself, excellent, all the parts I need to create exactly the right thing that I wanted for 40k, and I've got no intention of playing Necromunda at all? Which is what I did when I made a bunch of AdMech stuff out of Cordor. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click all the things, Patreon, video, subscribe, all that stuff. Click it if you like. Click it, or don't click it. It's up to you. I forgot what I was going to say halfway through the sentence. That's quite bad. As always, there's an affiliate link in the description for Element Games if you want to buy something for 40k, or indeed any of the other bajillion tabletop things they stock, or indeed paint or brushes or anything of that nature. If you click that, it gives me a little bit of something for sending you that way. You were going to buy this stuff anyway, and so you also save a little bit because it's between 15 and 25% off pretty much everything they do. So that is an option. You can do that if you would like. It's a way to support the channel with essentially no extra steps and not costing anything extra because you're going to buy the thing regardless. But you can click that or not. It's up to you. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you for the next one. Toodaloo.